Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and today we're just gonna quickly go through the brand new 4-piece that are gonna be coming out in version 3.3, the brand new 4-piece warrior set, as well as the 4-piece Wavestrider set, right? So I'm just gonna go through them piece by piece because the official information has already been made public a couple of days back. So for the warrior 4-piece, 2-piece is gonna be the 6% speed buff, which is gonna be exactly the same as your 2-piece Sekredos, as well as your 2-piece Hackerspace. But for the 4-piece, it's actually gonna be a very nice little benefit over here. When the wearer and their Mimo sprite provide healing to the ally targets aside from themselves, the wearer gains Gentle Rain, which can be triggered up to 1 time per turn, lasting up to 2 turns. While the wearer has Gentle Rain, increase their speed by 6% and all allies crit damage by 15%, and this effect cannot be stacked. So this effect, the first question you guys have in your mind is probably gonna be, can this be activated even for the users that does not have a Mimo sprite? And the answer is actually yes. So I've tested this out with Gallagher. Essentially, as long as you are the wearer and you can provide healing to your allied targets aside from themselves, you are able to trigger this Gentle Rain effect, which will give you a very nice team-wide crit damage buff of 15%, as well as their personal speed buff of 6%, making this grand piece gonna be a 12% speed buff plus a team-wide 15% crit damage. So as of this current point of time, I do believe that this is pretty much gonna be the best in slot 4-piece for pretty much any abundance units or any units that can heal their allies, which you can pretty much gain this free 12% speed as well as the additional 15% crit damage. You can basically run this for pretty much any of your sustains, even in any of the team console. For example, if you're not going to be using this 4-piece for, let's just say, in Gallagher for Super Break or Lingsha for Super Break, at the end of the day, 12% speed is still going to be 12% speed. So you can kind of decide for yourself if you're going to be deciding for the Iron Cavalry break damage, or you just want a little bit more for the 12% speed and try to hit that 200 effective speed threshold. Then for the crit DPS sustains, you want to run your hyacine, you want to run your Gallagher, your Luocha, all this kind of stuff, you can get this to be a very comfortable uptime for pretty much this team-wide 15% crit damage. So in my opinion, just for this brand new 4-piece alone, I would say this is going to be pretty valuable to farm for anybody that are going to be using your abundance sustain. Now keep in mind, this is only going to be providing healing to allied targets, not for shields. So far, unfortunately, Aventurian and the Japar, they are not going to be able to proc this specific effect over here. For Fu Xuan specifically, technically you can make use of Fu Xuan's ultimate, because every single time after you press a single ultimate, it does heal a team by a little bit, but the ultimate uptime is going to be way too short compared to your other abundance units, such as, for example, your hyacine and Gallagher. So the uptime for this is just a little bit sus. So I personally would still be sticking with Fu Xuan for the 2-piece Launchverse as well as the 2-piece Watering set, right? So that's pretty much going to be it for the Warrior Goddesses 4-piece. Bonus, I just tested this out. RMC as well as Mimi, they are not able to trigger the 4-piece wave because they have to heal for targets other than themselves. So unfortunately, RMC is not going to be able to run this set. And I've been just taking a look at the design over here. I think this does look very interesting. I'm not really exactly sure where have we exactly seen this kind of red design. It's gonna be a red piece as well as a white piece over here. But yeah, looking forward to how the story is gonna be panned out in 3.3. It does appear that they're gonna be having a very unique set of designs, right? And then jumping into the next 4-piece is going to be the Wavestrider Captain. 2-piece increased crit damage by 16%, and the 4-piece, when the wearer becomes a target of another ally's ability, gains 1 stack of health, stacking up to 2 times. If there are 2 stacks of health when the wearer uses the ultimate, consumes all health to increase their attack by 48% for 1 turn. So I've tested this out with one of the units that's going to be facial, and basically tried this alongside with the units such as Tribi, Hyacine, as well as Robin. So for this specific ability, it doesn't have to be a hyper carry ability, as long as it's going to be a buff. So any of your target's ability, it can even be a heal. Your wearer can definitely gain this 1 stack of health, as you can see from this facial stack in the screen over here. So upon getting 2 stacks, ideally you will only want to trigger the ultimate on the wearer's turn itself. For example, you can see over here, I triggered my facial's ultimate during facial's turn, and after this ultimate turn ends and I move on to another unit, the 48% attack actually still lasts on facial's turn until the start of her next turn. And this has been the case for pretty much almost every single one of our buffs. Ideally, you always want to cast your buffs on the unit's turn itself, so that the duration of that set buff could technically be extended by like half a turn, because it's not the beginning of the wearer's buff this turn and until the end of the wearer's buff at the end of the next turn, right? So essentially, I would say, unfortunately, even though it's going to be a 60% crit damage as well as a 48% attack buff, I don't really think there are too many crit DPSs in our current format that can actually make full use of this. Right now, maybe we could see a potential of a future DPS units that can make use of this set, but for the current moment, a lot of our current crit DPSs have their best in slot 4-piece already. For example, Aircron on the Diver, Facial on the Duran. You can run the Care Series, which is going to be a HP scaling DPS. So for my day Care Series, none of them really give a damn about the 48% attack buff. Maybe the Herda could make use of it, but then again, Scholar 4-piece is also really good. Same thing for Aglia, which is also going to be benefiting a lot from the 4-piece Triumphant, right? So essentially, even though this effect looks to be pretty easily attainable, as long as you can buff your target with any of your abilities, doesn't even have to be a buff, you can trigger this 48% attack. But unfortunately, because most of our crit DPSs right now, they already have their essentially best in slot, none of them are really gonna be worth that much to farm this set specifically just for an upgrade, unless you were farming for this set and your previous 4 pieces for crit DPS specifically, not your HP scaling DPS, only your crit attack scaling DPS. If you have been farming this set for a while and you somehow managed to get this set to be a much better crit value than the previous sets that you farmed, then I do believe that maybe you can consider making the replacement or the substitute. But as of where it stands right now, it is not going to be a direct upgrade. Also, just to add here, in case I didn't really establish clear enough, you guys see from the clip, if you were to cast a Robin skill or a Rame skill, you actually do not get any stacks of help. For example, in this case, I use Jingyuan example, right? You're not supposed to use this team anyways, but I'm just trying to use this to demonstrate whether or not you can get the stacks from help. So after casting the Rame's ultimate, which technically does buff your allies, that is when you actually get 1 stack of help. But notice how for Robin, even with Robin's ultimate, she also cannot give you any stacks of help. So generally speaking, the only way that you can gain this stack of help is if the targeted ability is actually applied to the whole team or directly to the individual DPS, in this case, Jingyuan running the 4-piece Wavestrider. So to sort of end off this video, to answer your question, should you be farming for these 2 version 3.34 piece? Generally speaking, I would say number 1, if you are somebody that has been using an abundant sustain, it doesn't necessarily have to be hyacine. You could be running Gallagher, you could be running your Luocha, you could even be running any even Lynx or Natasha to this day, or even Bailu, right? As long as you're gonna be running an abundance, as long as the unit can heal your allies, recover them the HP, I would say this 4-piece alone is going to be very worth it, right? Because as long as you can provide the speed buff as well as a team-wide almost 100% uptime for this 50% crit damage, it already offers a lot more value compared to our previous 4-piece that is going to be the 4-piece passerby. So for example, your Huo, you have pretty much most likely been using 2-piece hacker space in the 2-piece passerby, or maybe 2-piece hacker space in the 2-piece Sekredos, or maybe even the 4-piece Sekredos. But at this point, this Warrior Goddess's Wing Helm in this 4-piece specific set bonus, in my opinion, is going to be a lot better than pretty much all of our previous sets, 2-piece, 4-piece, whatever it is, as long as your unit is going to be in sustain, right? So keep in mind, in my opinion, if you are going to be using them for healer, I would say this is going to be a direct upgrade, especially since if you're not going to be farming too much of a healer sets. Because I would say for majority of player base, most of the time, the past couple of sets that I've been getting since version 3, they are mostly tailored to around DPSs. So if you guys have been doing the right thing for your DPS build up, which is going to be farming the brand new sets for the brand new DPS, most players probably haven't touched on this healer 4-piece upgrade for a very long time. Because keep in mind, the last time we got an indirect upgrade to a healer, which basically Sekredos, that's not really for a healer, because the only ever 2-piece that was meant for healing was basically the passerby. That was in version 1. And ever since that happened, we never really got a dedicated healer 4-piece. So I would say that for this 4-piece specifically, it is just going to be that universal for an upgrade compared to, for example, 2-piece passerby, 4-piece passerby, as well as the respective different speed relics, right? So I feel like for this alone, this relic would be worth to farm in version 3.3, right? And then for the 3.3's alternative set, which is going to be the Wavestrider Captain, I would say you shouldn't really be chasing this set specifically just for your crit DPS's upgrade, unless you have basically been skipping out on farming the previous sets and your crit DPS just looks really bad as of this current point of time. You don't really have a good amount of 2-piece, because at this point, you do have a 2-piece crit damage. So technically, if you want someone that has very bad crit values, you can combine this 2-piece crit damage for 16%, as well as the 2-piece Scholar for a 2-piece crit rate for also basically 16 crit value, for a combined total of 32 crit value. So with these two combined, even though it might not be the best in slot, but I would say these two pieces as a rainbow set is going to be performing far better than back in those days, which is going to be the 2-piece attack and the 2-piece damage percent, because crit value, I would say, is going to be a lot more important with regards to most of our DPSs nowadays, right? So I would say for now, this specific 4-piece most likely does not have a best in slot use yet, but in the future when more and more units comes out or more and more synergies come out that can make use of this a little bit better, then perhaps that future DPS can see the best use effect. So because at the end of the day, most of the 4 pieces that we have been gotten since honkaistarrail, we do have a best in slot unit for this specific ready sets eventually one day or the other. It might not come out now, but maybe in the future we can get a unit that can make use of this. So maybe Cypher makes of this, maybe in the future Final makes of this, or the Fake Collab makes of this. Nobody really knows, but I would say as of this current point of time, if you are not in the rush farming for your other 2-piece planners, specifically your 2-piece bone as well as your 2-piece tree, then I would say these 3.3 relics are worth it. I wouldn't say these relics are going to be worth farming if you're, for example, still trying to build up your Care Series teams, you're still trying to build up your Tribby, trying to build up your My Day, because for these units, they are going to be very, very dependent on the 4-piece Poet as well as the 2-piece Bone set. So because they are so HP scaling and you really don't have any other alternatives, and you still to this day have not unlocked a pretty decent crit value subsets for your Care Series, My Day or Tribby, then I would say sticking into the 4-piece Poet or the 2-piece Planner domain that's going to be the Bone or Tree is going to be a little bit more valuable to you, especially for the 2-piece Planner for the Bone or Tree set, because for the 2-piece Tree set, Hyacine is also going to be making use of the Tree set because it is still going to be a 6% speed buff all the way up to a 20% outgoing healing, which Hyacine will also be making use of, right? So at the end of the day, even though I feel that these 3.3 sets are pretty decent, you still want to take a look into your account and see exactly what is it that you are missing before committing your stamina into farming for this brand new 4-piece. So if you're still lacking, you're still building halfway for your casuals and all that kind of stuff, I would say sticking to your Poet, sticking to your Bone is still going to be okay. But if you're already more or less done, what I mean by more or less done is basically if you're already getting roughly, let's just say 80-85% of the final product that you're looking for, so maybe you're missing like maybe 1 or 2 rolls here and there per relic. So let's just say the best in slot is like a 4 roll, you are getting like 3 to 2 rolls, 2.5 average, then I would say going forward to the next brand new 4-piece, you are stand to gain a lot more because it is always about opportunity cost. Every single stamina they're going to be spending to the brand new 4-piece, in my opinion, is going to give you a much more substantial upgrade in terms of relic quality, because no relics is always going to be worse than having some relics but not the best gear score, right? So with that, I hope that this sort of answers the question of whether should you be pulling, should you be using the brand new 4-piece that's going to be coming out in version 3.3, right? So we've come to the end of today's very, very quick little content. Leave a comment down below if you're going to be farming for this brand new 4-piece and if you're going to be pulling for hyacine, right? Well, over there is going to be Peep. Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join Twitter, join Twitter. All the best for Gacha pulls. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.